Welcome to Ask Diz. I'm Diz, and this is the show where I attempt to answer your most pressing running questions. Let's get after it. Today's question comes from Leticia, and it actually kind of builds upon a question that we answered not too long ago from Tracy. If you missed that one about the 10% rule, you can find it right there. But Leticia asks, what about the rule that says your long run should never be more than 20 to 25% of your total weekly mileage? I find that hard to follow, especially when it comes to long runs of 30K or more in marathon training. What are your thoughts? So, Leticia, I mean, it's going to be pretty similar, I think, my train of thought on this to what I talked about when I talked about the 10% rule, in that it's one of those rules that kind of sounds good in theory. It makes a lot of sense on paper, yet for those of us in the real world, which I'm assuming that you live in the real world, Lord knows I live in the real world, it's pretty hard to follow. And when I say real world, what do I mean? I mean, you've got work to take care of. You may have family to take care of. You have social obligations. You have whatever. We've got all of these things. Your life, my life, doesn't just revolve around our ability to get out the door and go for a run. Wish it would. Wish it did. That would be fantastic. And if it did, for those that are running lots of miles, especially your elite runners, your professional runners, I think that's where this rule really does make sense, because you're getting 100 miles a month, or I'm sorry, 100 miles a week. Goodness, 100 miles a month, yes. But the elites are getting 100, 150, sometimes 200 miles per week. And in those cases, they're definitely never going to go, or at least most likely never going to go more than 20 or 25% of their total weekly volume on a long run. I mean, shoot, you can do the math on that. If you're doing 100 miles per week, 20% of that's 20 miler. A 25 miler would be 25%. So, most people, if they're running that much, are probably going to knock out a 20 miler, maybe even a couple of 20 milers a week, but never really much more than that. Versus myself, maybe you, Leticia, maybe everybody else watching, where, we're getting, for me, a heavy mileage week tends to be somewhere in the 40 to 45 mile range. Maybe every once in a while I might touch 50, but for the most part, a heavy mileage week for me, 40 to 45 miles. In those weeks, you can bet your bottom dollar that my long run on a 40 mile plus week was at least 20 miles. It may have been an S&G 26.2. May have been 23, 24. Sometimes I get close enough where I should probably just go to the damn 26.2 and I come up short. But, it's going to be, the bottom line is it's going to be more than 20 miles. No doubt about it. There's no way that I'm running 40 or 45 miles in a week and having my long run be only 10 miles, which would put us right square in that 20 to 25% range. So, when it comes to building up for a marathon, when it comes to building up for a half marathon, we've got to do what makes sense in the scope of our lives, And if you're only running 20 miles per week and you're running 20 miles on your long run, that's probably not the ideal situation, although you can absolutely make it work. That's how I trained for my first marathon. I clearly didn't know what I was doing, but my only runs were my long runs. Granted, I never made it up to 20 miles, which is a whole other ridiculous story and idiot kind of move that I made back in the day. But, I think you could do that. It's not ideal. Obviously, we want to run a bit more throughout the week. We want to build that base and not put all our eggs in the one long run per week basket. But, you don't have to stick to that 20 to 25 mile or 20 to 25% of your total volume situation. I mean, that's just like you said, Leticia, it's just not feasible. It's not realistic when you start coupling all the other things you've got going on in your life, plus trying to get a long run on the weekend that's legitimately going to help you get ready for that marathon. It's going to be in that 30K, 18 miles, 20 miles, maybe even beyond that, 21, 22, 23 miles. So you're looking at, 33, 34, 35K. Man, that's a lot to then try to go another 35 times 3, another 105K during the other days of the week. Whew, that's a lot. Not realistic for me. Doesn't sound like it's realistic for you. So when it comes to that rule of 20 to 25% should be your of your total weekly volume should be your long run. I don't even know if I would call that a more of a guideline than a rule. I'd call that more of a idyllic principle, maybe if you're really going long for the week. But for those of us that, run a moderate amount, less than 50 miles total for a week, I don't think that's very realistic to expect to stick to that range while training for some longer races. So your mileage may vary on that one, but Leticia, I think we're on the same page on this one. I think that a lot of people probably are as well, that just doesn't work for them in their life with all of the aspects, all the things going on to try to keep their long runs, or to try to add enough mileage to make their long runs be only 20 to 25%. It just doesn't work out. Just doesn't work out. So hope that helps. Hope that makes sense. Leticia, if you have further questions, let me know. Everybody else, if you want to get a question answered on a future episode of Ask Diz, the best way to do it is send an email to askdiz@dizruns.com. Should be on the screen right now. The email address is also down below in the description of the episode, and I would love to answer your question. If you want to take your question to the next level, whip out your phone, pull up the voice memo app, and record yourself asking the question. You don't have to do the video. Don't worry. If you want to do a video, if you want to send me a video, I'll play your video as well. But if you just want to do the audio, record yourself asking your question, send that to me. Same email address, askdiz@dizruns.com, and we'll make sure to get that into the queue for a future episode of the show. So thank you, Leticia, for the question today. Thank you guys for watching, for listening, for tuning in to this new endeavor. Enjoying the journey on YouTube so far. Keep the questions coming. Keep the comments coming. And if you really like it, go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and tell somebody else about it. That's great too. Not required. Certainly appreciated. So until next time, thanks for watching. This has been Diz, hopefully helping to answer a question for Leticia and maybe you as well. And we'll talk to you again soon, all right? See ya.